New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment. Inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And you know there's nothing truer. I am absolutely so glad to be with you this evening. Thank you for joining me and spending your Sunday night together. Welcome to Who Do You Think You Are? A podcast devoted to your well-being, your emotional truth, and your right to live a life that honors you. On this show, we talk about how to have the highest regard for yourself, how to live from a place of self-respect and self-love, and how to make yourself a priority in your own life. Join me each week for insights and strategies designed to help you drop your psychological masks, connect with your truest essence, and simply live life with greater ease. Because we know that when we approach life in this way, we naturally and effortlessly have more room, more generosity, and more love for one another. And as I say each and every Sunday night, dear friends and wide receivers, when have we needed love more than this very night, than this very hour, and dare I say, this very moment? Thank you for receiving me tonight. Before we dive into tonight's show and talk about what I think is a very interesting and very nuanced topic, I want to remind you all of something very important. As you know, this show is a space for self-reflection, emotional exploration, occasionally some storytelling, but it is not and can't be a substitute for mental health treatment or psychotherapy. So I want to say to you, if you are in pain tonight, if you are suffering with something, if you just are not yourself and you haven't been able to work that through, please talk to someone. Talk to someone. Don't go it alone. Okay, going it alone, white knuckling it, isolating yourself, really, there's not much courage in that. Take a step, reach out, let someone help you and support you. If I can be of any help to you, if you'd like help with a resource or a referral, just let me know. Drop me an email at Catherine@catherineduca.com. Very simple, Catherine@catherineduca.com. Let me know what you need, and I will do my very best to help you. Okay? Do not go it alone. Okay. Having said that, a quick reminder, if you derive benefit from tonight's episode, and in fact, if you've tuned in and found the content here valuable and useful, I invite you to please like, share, and subscribe. I have one word, algorithm. You know how it goes, so please do that. And if you know of someone who could benefit from tonight's content, why don't you let them know that the podcast exists? All the shows are archived here on New Thought Media Network and on my personal YouTube channel as well. That's Catherine Duca Confidence Builder. That's Catherine Duca Confidence Builder. And in a pinch, for exactly 30 days until Meta deletes the broadcast as it does as a matter of routine, you can catch this broadcast on my Facebook page, simply Catherine Duca. So you can find recorded shows anywhere and everywhere. Okay, so no matter what you're doing, I've heard so many interesting things what people are doing when they listen to the podcast. If you are walking the dog, if you are doing the dishes, refinishing or painting some furniture, as someone told me last week, thank you again for being here. I invite you to come into this space with me and with everyone listening, this shared space, knowing that you and I and everyone listening tonight and in future days and weeks all want the same thing. I believe fundamentally we all want the same thing. We want to be acknowledged. We want to be truly known without having to perform. I think we all want to be held for the complex, messy, yes, magnificent beings that we are, but not just for our usefulness. Don't you find that to be true? You want to be seen for who you are in whatever state you are in. I know I want that. We want to be loved for our evolving and emerging, not simply for our arrival. And listeners, I think more than anything, we want to feel as though we're not alone, right? As though we're not in an echo chamber. We want to feel as though there's someone holding us up, and others need to know that we are holding them up. So in this shared space tonight, let us come together in that spirit. I don't have to tell you, I don't have to tell any of you, there is so much going on in the world, so much happening that arouses in all of us all kinds of emotions. I don't think any one of us can be awake human beings without being in some level of pain tonight, these days, right? If you're awake, you're hurting. You're hurting for your brothers and sisters. You're hurting for other people whose lives are very difficult right now. I invite you, though, for this hour to allow your thoughts and concerns and your heart to recede to the background just for this hour. When I say your heart, I mean the part of your heart that goes out to humanity. If you can, allow that part of you to just take a bit of a back seat. It's not going to disappear. I don't believe it should. And for this time together, let's turn our attention to what's happening in here, within us all. Because if we are to survive this turbulence, if we're to survive it intact, and not only survive it, but help one another and make a contribution to this planet, then who we are becoming, maybe not in spite of the turbulence, but because of it, who we are becoming is all important. So it is in this spirit, in this atmosphere, that I come to you tonight. So as we get here, I want to say that the title of tonight's episode is The Weight You Didn't Know You Were Carrying. the weight you didn't know you were carrying. And I'm going to just do a very quick recap of the past couple of episodes, very briefly, for those of you who maybe have not listened or listened as yet, and you're coming in tonight. We started a few episodes ago talking about this thing that we humans do, at least in this culture, in Western culture, this thing that we do to ourselves. We're so worried about what other people are going to do to us, how they're going to abandon us or reject us or leave us behind. But we do this thing to ourselves where we leave ourselves behind. We abdicate our own needs. Have you noticed that? We don't put ourselves on our own most important to-do lists. We have a way of vanishing from our own well-being. And so we've been talking about how we can begin to work with ourselves on abandoning ourselves less and showing up for ourselves more. And last week, we talked about the in-between space, that space when you say to yourself, oh, okay, I realize what I've been doing. I haven't been behind myself. I haven't really had my own back. So you realize that you no longer want to do that, but you don't yet have a new way of being. So you're in that in-between stage, and that can be a lot of things. That can be an awkward stage, an emotionally clumsy stage. It can be filled with uncertainty. Uh-oh, what do I do? I usually knee jerk. I usually react this way, but I've been giving this some thought and I want to respond differently. Oh, but I'm not quite sure exactly what that is. I don't yet have solid ground under me. So last week, I talked about the importance and the necessity, and actually the gift that we can give ourselves if we afford ourselves grace while we're going through that middle ground. And there's no telling how long that middle ground will last. It's different for each of us. But however long it does last, grace doesn't speed things up and it doesn't eliminate the awkwardness. What it does is it kind of holds us while we're in that space. Grace doesn't say, well, you should know this by now. You're too old. I can't believe you're starting now to change certain things about yourself. Grace says, welcome, come on in. The water's warm. Grace says, it's okay that you feel a little clumsy and unsteady. It's okay. Breathe through this. Be present to yourself. That's what grace says. So I call that period the grace period. And it's so very important. Now, tonight, I want to take things one step beyond that. And I want to talk about another aspect of healing that I think isn't talked about very much at all. And I think the reason for that is because this particular aspect of healing or growth or stretching ourselves is so quiet and subtle and in the background that I don't know that it's labeled by many people. And so I want to label it tonight. So in that grace period, if you can hold yourself present, something very interesting comes up as well. And as I've been reflecting on your healing and my own, I very much have noticed this occurrence. And I'm going to tell you what it is. You may be surprised, or maybe you won't be surprised, but I'm talking about grief. That's right, grief. And so in that mid-range, underneath the awkwardness and underneath the clumsiness is a feeling of, well, grief, uh, almost a mourning. Now, I'll say mourning in maybe lowercase because it's not usually a very heightened thing. It's not really dramatic, and it doesn't come with sobbing necessarily. But it's a very low level kind of grief. Now, you might ask yourself, well, Catherine, if I'm trying to get away from a behavior that no longer serves me, why would I feel grief? Wouldn't I feel glad to take a step in the right direction, a step toward my wholeness or my authenticity? Well, the answer is not necessarily, or not by itself. You see, the grief that we feel, we tend to think that if we're going to move toward wholeness and authenticity, that's kind of a light thing, and that's filled with hope and optimism. I'm doing something good for myself. I'm doing something in my own best interest. And yes, that is true. But in the doing of that, you are beginning to let go of a part of you that has been your identity your whole life, a part of you that you are accustomed to, a part of yourself that you are familiar with. And so is everyone around you, by the way. So when you or I begin to make a change, when we begin to conduct a little mini experiment, and maybe we let someone know that we didn't appreciate something they said, or we're having a reaction, or we feel some kind of way, maybe disappointed. And we go to say those words where in the past we would just have smiled or stayed silent or brushed it off or changed the subject or lightened it up, whatever you please. But in this moment, you take the risk of saying, you know what, I feel disappointed hearing that. And then you just let that stay and you remain present to yourself. In that moment, you are going to inevitably come in touch with the contrast of doing that. And it's going to be much deeper than, I could have had a V8. You know that feeling you hit yourself on the forehead? I could have done it differently. I mean, it is that, but it's much more profound than that, because it begins to dawn on us that, wow, I've lived my whole life, perhaps, never standing up for myself. There were so many instances when I didn't advocate for myself. I didn't know I could. I didn't know I should. And I certainly didn't know how. So the grief that we feel in beginning to release a part of our identity comes with what could be an ouch, or it could be a sadness. And this is not in any way a reflection that you're doing anything wrong or you're doing it poorly. Quite the contrary. I would say you're right on target. You're right on schedule. And then what also becomes clearer in that moment are the specific ways in which you haven't had your own back. So you might come in touch with the role you've played. So in saying to someone out loud, oh, gee, I have to say, I feel disappointed hearing you say that. In that moment, it can very clearly register, I've never said anything like that before. I've never dared say that. I've played the role of, the one who gets along, the easy one, the one that doesn't make waves, the one that doesn't ask for anything, the one that, just doesn't need anything. And when you begin to realize and name those roles in that moment, and it is a momentary thing, it can happen in a flash, you begin to identify the contrasting role you've played, maybe your whole life. So I believe that grace and grief are like the power couple, if you will, of moving through the healing process. Both, well, one is a choice. I think grace is a choice. We can choose to allow ourselves to be present to what we feel. We can coax ourselves and coach ourselves and encourage ourselves to hold our own presence. So grace, I believe, is a choice. Grief, I think, occurs naturally and involuntarily the more we allow grace to hold us still. Can you see that? So grace and grief go hand in hand. Call it double Dutch, call it a double helix, call it, a power couple. Any analogy you wish. They are really coupled and very, very integral to the healing process. And I find this fascinating. And, I'm really wanting to mention this tonight and more than mention, talk about this, because if we're not prepared for a moment like this, in that discomfort, you go to say something authentic and suddenly alarms go off in the back of your mind. The impulse is to kind of take it back. Do you know what I mean? Take it back, soft pedal. So, I didn't mean it, just kidding. And run back to the old way of being. And you might try it again, but then the same thing will happen if you don't recognize what's going on within you. Oh, this is grief. I understand why. I'm doing something different. It's a departure from how I know myself to react. And so some people call that self-sabotage. Self-sabotage, where they undo their progress. They take half a step in a forward direction, feel uncomfortable, and then go back. And they're on that kind of, that whatever you call it, your treadmill, back and forth, start, stop, one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake, and you spin out. And eventually, if you don't recognize what's happening inside, where you are in your process, you're going to say, this is just too difficult. This is too distasteful. This doesn't work. I don't know what that Duca person was talking about. This doesn't work for me. And then another year goes by or longer, and you say, why am I so stuck? Why am I so stuck? I'm reading all the things. I'm reading the books. I'm attending the webinars. I'm taking the courses. It's because this very, very quiet, hidden aspect of healing, if you don't know it's happening, you won't know how to meet it. And so tonight, I hope to be offering some ways on how to do just that. So I think I'm going to pause here. And I see we have some people in the chat. I love to see people in the chat. Thank you. Put my glasses on and see. I'm going to go in order. Michelle, hi there. Good to see you. That's exactly what I feel as I go through change. The unfamiliar that I have felt or feel was grief. I also feel the fear of the unknown. Yes, And you go on to say, the grief is ambiguous. It's different from a tangible loss. That is so important, Michelle. That's so important. And that's one of the reasons why it isn't easily identified or labeled, and therefore it isn't often spoken about. We are in that place of uncertainty. You see, no one knows the old drill as well as we do. It's second nature. It's that old slipper. Even though, and tell me, Michelle, if you agree with this, even though the old pattern may leave you feeling not only stuck, but enormously frustrated and mad at yourself and maybe even depressed, down on yourself, kind of empty. You know, still, that pattern belongs to us. It's our DNA. And so when we relinquish even a part of it, we don't know what's coming next. And that period of time is certainly one that we don't know. And navigating the unknown and sort of treading the waters of uncertainty, well, I believe that's the thing so many of us struggle with. That's really top of the list. You know, clients tell me all the time, oh, I don't do uncertainty. I'd rather have a bad choice than not know what my next choice is. So, Michelle, absolutely right. The grief is ambiguous. It's amorphous. It's different from a tangible loss. So, thank you very much for that. An excellent point. Thank you. Janine, welcome. Good to see you. That was a great example you gave when you said, I feel disappointed to hear that. I can think of situations where that would have been the perfect response. So truthful, yet non-confrontational. Yeah, well, you know, I think perhaps because that's an I statement, right? And we've talked about this so many times. When we speak in the I rather than the you, there's no better way to make someone you're having a dialogue with more defensive and bristle and not take in what you're saying than starting off with, you know what you do? You. I have to say, I'm guilty of that myself sometimes. So it requires a lot of vigilance and a lot of practice. But with grace, you can note when it gets past you and redirect yourself. Yeah, I felt disappointed to hear that. Or maybe even something a little more difficult. I didn't appreciate when you said this or you did that or you didn't do that. I didn't appreciate that. Now maybe you can follow that up with, can you let me know what made you do or not do? Can you help me understand? I'd like, I'd like to understand your reason. And if you can do that in the spirit of genuine curiosity rather than pouncing to make the other person wrong, you and the other person will have a much better conversation and much more likely to have a meeting of hearts and minds and understanding. So thank you, Janine. I'm glad you let me know that landed. I feel this way or that way. Okay, thank you. Michelle says to Janine, it speaks loudly without confrontation. Yes, it does. And Janine goes on to say, I think we're on the same page, Michelle. There's grief in realizing it after the fact. Yes, that's true. Because even if these moments get past us, and remember, we can't be a black belt at this right off the bat. It takes practice. It takes, backing up and doing all the things I said, we'd rather not do, but we do them anyway. Grace will forgive us and have us forgive ourselves. And we realize it in retrospect, and that helps us ready ourselves for the next time. For the next time. And there will be a next time probably in the next 10 minutes or so. So tonight, I hope I'm making the case for being accepting, being more okay with the grief. And, grief, if we want to even unpack that, grief is a combination of things. It entails some sadness, some regret, maybe even some anger, not unlike when we lose a person we care about or we love. It's different because this is an intangible, but it's similar in that we feel the whole host of emotions all swirling at the same time. Why did this person have to leave? I'm angry. I don't know. How can I be angry at them for leaving? Okay, I'm mad at the world. I'm mad at God. I'm having a crisis of my faith. I'm sad. I'm upset. I'm lost. I don't know what I'm going to do without that person. There are parallel emotions that occur with losses of every type. So before we take a short break, I want to emphasize that in the moment it takes to say something like, I'm so disappointed hearing that. In that split moment, see, this is so interesting because it's not a protracted period of time necessarily. It's when we stick our emotional neck out and take the risk that suddenly we realize, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? And that's when we may want to revert. So in that moment, there's all of this going on. And if we can, at a calm point in time, such as during this conversation, give some consideration to the grief and the grace, then when it happens, we're that much more prepared. And the more prepared we are, the more we're in a position to usher ourselves through the way we would a friend. This space between here and there. In my newsletter this morning, by the same name, The Weight You're Carrying That you may not be aware of, I talked about the metaphor that came to my mind. I thought about a bridge, in particular, a suspension bridge, right? And how this middle ground is like that bridge. But I think the grace and the grief together begin to act as support beams to strengthen that bridge and hold it up for tomorrow and for the rest of your life. So if we can get this down, if we can allow ourselves to have the room to be and feel and express our authentic selves and not just automatically go by what our mask dictates, we will have something forever, something that nobody gave us, and hence no one can take it away, access to who we truly are. Because who we think we are behind our masks and our facades and the walls and the shields and the cover-ups and all the rest, who we think we are is not who we truly are at core. Those are just gimmicks. I mean, they're very important. They're parts of our personality. They helped us survive. Pretty important thing. But they don't reflect who we truly are in the depths of our being. They don't reflect who we are when we're most connected to Source, when we're most connected to divine energy, when we realize divine energy runs through us. And in fact, we are a manifestation of divine energy in this body called Catherine, in this body called Michelle or Janine. and anyone else listening. This is just the suit. And we walk around, think about it. We walk around mask to mask, defense to defense, wall to wall. It's amazing anything gets done, isn't it? And then we want to have an intimate relationship with someone, all the while we have our mask on. How is that possible? Because we can only be intimate with another person to the degree that we are intimate with ourselves. And when I say intimate with ourselves, I mean aware of ourselves, curious about ourselves, accepting of who we are. That doesn't mean, see, it can sound like a contradiction, being self-accepting and doing this work. It can sound, well, if I'm accepting, why should I change? Well, because it's being accepting of our flaws, of our shortcomings, our limitations. It's knowing that we have them, because who doesn't? And the more we accept our own, the more we're automatically in a position to accept other people's limitations. And from that place, we can exchange with people, talk to people on a deeper level, on a more intimate level, a more honest level. And life feels very different when we come from that place. When we come from that place. I think it's Marianne Williamson who says, if you do this kind of work in the morning, you're different at lunchtime. Now, I don't know how literally she meant in the span of a couple of hours, although if we can say, I feel disappointed to hear that and stay present, it really can be something. And so maybe you can be different at lunch, because in that moment, what you have is a feeling of mastery. I said my truth and I stand by it gently, but, sure-heartedly. I stand by my truth. It's a different doorway. So, friends, this is quite a mouthful. Why don't we take a few moments, digest, and come back after a short break. I'll maybe take a question or two, see if anybody else has something to say in the chat. I'd love to know what you're thinking and feeling about this. Join me in a few minutes. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? I'm your host, Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach. Stay with me. Be right back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
What would Louise say? Join us every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Hosted by Reverend Martine Bernard. Explore the wisdom of Louise Hay. Brought to you by New Thought Media Network. Dive into Louise's teachings. Experience healing and empowerment. Reverend Martine shares insights. Connect with a contemporary audience. Unlock your potential. Transform your life with love. Embrace positivity and healing. Join our vibrant community. Ready to join us? Let's spread love and wisdom together. Please like, share, and subscribe. Only on New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And welcome back. If you're just joining me, we are having an interesting conversation about the mid-ground between beginning to let go of a certain way of being that no longer serves us, making our way to the other side, but that crossing, walking across that bridge from who you were to who you want to be can be awkward. It can be filled with, as someone said in the chat, uncertainty. It is a very unfamiliar place. And along the way, if we can know what to expect, we can be more prepared. And tonight we're talking about the grief that comes to the surface when we take a step toward authenticity, if we are not used to being our authentic selves. So, I also have been talking about grace and the interplay between the two. Grace holds you with presence as you cross that bridge. Grief comes up as you realize that you have allowed yourself to normalize, without even realizing it, the roles you've played, the good one, the one that doesn't ask for anything, the one that doesn't burden anyone, the one that is the very person everyone comes to, but the same person who goes to no one. And so we're talking about how to usher yourself across that suspension bridge, because with grace and grief together, you begin to develop these support beams that can hold you up and support this new way of being. Because once you dip into your authenticity, I say this all the time, there's no going back. There's no going back, and you won't want to. You won't want to. Now, one of the things that people tell me is people in your life may not initially applaud some of your new changes. Well, that's very understandable. And I want to remind us all that as we make these changes, I think it's important that we give others around us the room to have their reaction to the emerging us, right? If we have broken people in a certain way by being the strong one, the stoic one, the one that is never vulnerable, never asks for anything, never says anything less than happy, or agreeable, then when you do, it's natural that other people would maybe look, askance and say, whoa, is that an attitude or something? To which you can simply say, You know, I I've been listening to a podcast actually, or I've been doing some work on myself, some variation of this, and you know what? I realize that I can be more forthcoming with what I feel, and I want you to know how I really feel in an atmosphere of truthfulness and openness. You see, so it doesn't have to be in any way adversarial. It can be, I want you to know who I am, little by little, depending upon who this is and how close they are to you. But certainly people in your orbit. Yeah, I decided I want to be known. So I'm telling you how I feel, you know. All right. I saw somebody else in the chat. Just Judy. Hi, Just Judy. Welcome. Many people these days, especially older ones, are living by themselves. There's no one to say, I didn't appreciate your saying that to the interactions. So the interactions you're talking about are very limited, although I do appreciate the point. Let me read that again. Many people these days, especially older ones, are living by themselves. There's no one to say, I didn't appreciate your saying that. So the interactions you're talking about are very limited. Well, I appreciate your point, Judy. Yeah. Now, depending upon who this is, I mean, in general, one still probably interacts with the world. And so this isn't only reserved for people in our intimate orbit. It can be a family member, of course. It can be a friend. But it can be, it can be anyone you interact with. I was on the telephone the other day with a cable company, a new cable company, and I was on the phone probably for a little over an hour after being on hold for quite some time and rerouted and all of that. And when the gentleman came on, I could hardly understand him because there was so much background noise, and his headset was making a funny sound every time he spoke. And I was trying to contain my frustration, but it was, rising. And I said, I mean, I didn't say I'm disappointed in you. I wasn't, but I was getting frustrated, and I had to ask him to slow down and to see if he could do something with his headset. And I asked him to be patient with me because my experience was quite unpleasant being on the other end of the line. So now that's not as heavy as telling a relative or a friend, I didn't appreciate that. But it was not just blowing up at this person, just doing his job, nor was it swallowing. It was my way of trying to make the interaction with the cable company more productive and less irritating for him and less irritating for myself. So, Judy, that's just one small way of being mindful, I guess we could say, of our interactions. Had I swallowed that level of frustration, I know I would have either been snarky to him, and I don't think he deserved that. He's not aware of his, the background noise or, such and such. So I had to let him know. So that's one thing. I appreciate your point, though, Judy. Thank you. I want to read a very brief kind of 3-sentence email that came in this morning in response to my newsletter, which, by the way, if you would like to receive a copy every Sunday morning in your inbox called Sunday Sauce, just drop me an email, Catherine@CatherineDuca.com, and just write in the subject line, add me, and I'll know exactly what you mean. Okay. So this reader wrote in to say, we all carry so much weight from past to present. I am one of them, but I am, quote, on a diet, unquote, to get rid of the extra weight. I'll read that again. We all carry so much weight from past to present. I am one of them, but I'm on a diet to get rid of the extra weight. Some people are so surprised that I, at my age, am finally starting to stick up for myself. I'm going to continue to get up with it, or maybe perhaps she meant get on with it. Some people are so surprised that at my age, I'm finally starting to stick up for myself, and I'm going to continue going ahead with it. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? So to this person, it mattered not her age. What matters is that she's not saying exactly what, but I assume she's finding something good, something affirming that makes her endure the discomfort of people around her being surprised. And she's going to continue because this serves her. And as I say all the time, and as I say in my introduction, the more we take care of ourselves in this way, almost by extension, we naturally have more tolerance for other people because we get it. We get it. We know how hard it is to be in our skin trying to change. We can then more easily understand that other people are either, more trapped behind their wall and don't know it, in which case I think they deserve our empathy. Or maybe they're in a process where they are trying to change, but they're walking across their suspension bridge and it's wobbly and they feel wobbly. So what am I saying? I'm saying in the end and ultimately, we're really in the same broad emotional boat. I think we're all connected in this type of way, that if we remove this outfit called Catherine Duca or Janine or Judy or Michelle or whomever, and we just consider being consciousness and presence and vibration, then we understand that, cliche as it sounds, we truly have more in common than separates us. And if we can remember that, we're nicer. I think life is nicer. People tend to be nicer to us. And it's not all, hallmarky, but I think these are real ways that we can work with ourselves and have our own backs. Another question that came in from Maya: Dear Catherine, what does it mean to have your own back? I thought I knew, but now I'm not so sure. Well, I would say, Maya, if you're listening, I would say having our own back is an extension of what I was talking to Janine about when I said, I feel disappointed hearing that. It's statements like, I wrote a couple of them down, like, that was hard for me. I did what I did, or I showed up, or I did something, and I'm just letting you know that was hard for me. I may not have looked it, but I'm just sharing that inside it was difficult, and I'm just letting you know. So to say something like that was hard, or I didn't appreciate that, or one step further is, I didn't deserve that. I don't think I deserved that. I don't think I deserved. You seem to have spoken to me in a very sarcastic way. I don't think I deserve that. Can you hear that from me? Can you say it in another way? Because the way I heard it made me bristle. It's saying no. I mean, we've been over this one, without a big, lengthy explanation or a humongous apology. It's saying no. And if you would like help with no statements, you can go to my website and you will find a list of polite but yet direct ways of saying no. It's called 50 Shades of No, actually. It's okay to rest. Yes, I have this to do and that to do, but you know what? I'm going to rest because taking care of myself, A, is something I deserve. B, it'll probably make me feel more productive after I rest because I'm taking care of my own depletion. If I have my back, I'm not going to habitually let myself get drained and come back the next day and do it all over again. Because I recognize that over time, that hurts me. So that's another. So having our own back isn't just with regarding interactions. It's also with how we speak to ourselves. If we speak to ourselves the way we would speak to a good friend or a precious child, then, you know, we're on a better path with ourselves. Okay. Just Judy has one more comment. I'll take this. And then I think we have to start wrapping up for the night. Judy says, you're right. I definitely interact with the world, including close friends. I do need to express myself more authentically with old friends. Well, there you go. There you go. As do we all, I think. As do we all. So as we get ready to close, dear listeners, wide receivers, friends, I invite you to think about where in your life are you carrying the weight of an old role that you've played? Where have you normalized not asking for anything? Where have you normalized swallowing your true feelings, sweeping them under the rug, covering them up, displacing them onto other people, gossiping, telling everybody else but the person who needs to hear your feelings how you feel? When and where in your life have you done that? And where might you be doing it still? Because if you can identify that, you have a doorway that you can pass through. So I invite you to take this into your week. I will do the same, and I will think of all of you. I want to let you know that I will not be here next week live. So there will be a rebroadcast of a previous episode, but I will be back the following week, which is Thanksgiving Sunday. And I really look forward to being with you then. We are going to talk about gratitude. How could we not? But I'm going to talk about it in a slightly different way. I'm going to talk about gratitude to yourself for showing up, for coming along, for walking across this bridge, for extending yourself, for being true to who you are. So coming attraction, that's what we'll be talking about the weekend of Thanksgiving. Until then, thank you as always for hearing me and receiving me. It is such a pleasure spending this time with you. Take good care of yourselves and know that you are not only loved, which you are love. Plain and simple. You didn't do anything to get that way, and you can't do anything to unbecome that. You are love. So spread it around this week and spread it generously. Until 2 weeks from now, take care, be well. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? I'm Catherine Duca. Good night.